Welcome to Scoop Order. It is Sunday night. Spring ball is here, and the Buckeyes dominated the combine. We have the full breakdown of everybody that did everything they did, and a lot of the stuff they didn't do. Pro Day will be a huge day for a lot of these guys that did not run the 40. But for the most part, the team showed out. This is probably the best collective combine performance in Ohio State history in terms of everybody did really well. Everybody that did what they could do. We had some guys that pulled out with hamstrings or whatever, but everybody that tested did phenomenal. They did great in the position work. Some of the best performances in combine history by C.J. Stroud, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. DeJuan showed up and was huge. So a lot of good things to talk about. And spring ball is here. Final workout on Friday was a ball buster, and we're going to break that down as winter conditioning is done. We're going to talk about some winners and losers, and we're going to take your questions. So huge week ahead on BuckeyesScoop.com. So you guys need to join up to get the latest on what is going on inside the WAC for spring ball. I've been talking to some coaches, getting some good intel. Super excited about what is going down for spring football. That being said, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. Give us a like. Get those questions ready to go. Shout out where you're from in the comments. I love where you guys say where you guys are from. Appreciate that. Subscribe to BuckeyesScoop.com. I'm telling you, we are cranking some info. Bill Green has some big recruiting stuff coming up. We're going to have wall-to-wall coverage breaking down every day of spring practice. So we're super excited about that. And I think you guys are ready to sign up and join the best Ohio State message board in the business. So if you could, on your way out of this thing, click like, click subscribe, and click alert so you guys can see when we go live. That being said, going to bring in my good friend, Nevada. Nevada, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, man. I'm still flush with the glow of the big UFC card last night. We crushed it from a gambling standpoint. So any of you gamblers out there, yeah, we're crushing it on our betting thread. There was a great night, and man, as you said, the Buckeyes crushed it at the combine. That is the best performance, no doubt. Nobody did bad. Nobody ate the cadoodle from Ohio State standpoint, and that's what a talented team. I mean, you look at this team, what a talented team, and what could have been. They could have been a multiple national championship winning team, if not for a couple of bad breaks, but great performances. Now on to 2023 spring ball. So very excited.
Yeah, it's one of the ultimate what could have been teams when you look at the overall, especially the top tier talent. When you look at Paris, you look at DeJuan, you look at CJ, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. And then you see some of the guys returning. I mean, Marvin's number one at his position, Trey's number one at his position. A lot of talent coming back. JT Tuimoloau, probably the number one defensive end in the country. What could have been? But, I think it speaks volumes to Ryan Day and Mickey Marotti's strength training program, how well these guys did in the drills. These guys are in great shape. They're conditioned. Obviously, I know that they spent a couple of months with training centers, like usually in Phoenix or Scottsdale or Miami or Los Angeles or wherever their agents generally send them. But, that's only a 2-month kind of tune up, get your body right, maybe hone in some of your mechanics for the 40s and for the L drum for the short shuttle. But in reality, you can't replicate 3 years of work under Mickey Marotti, 3, 4, or 5 years of work under the strength and conditioning staff. And you can tell our guys put in the work because those guys, they looked in good shape. They repped well in the 225, the guys that did it. They ran well. They looked very fit. So again, that's kudos to our strength program, to Mickey Marotti. I know how hard those guys work. I've been in the program. I've seen the program. And you can't make up not working hard in a weight room over 2 months at some training performance centers. So kudos to those guys. Any surprises? Anybody jump out to you? We knew CJ Stroud would throw well. We knew that Jackson would run well. I think that his L drill and his short shuttle were two of the fastest times in combine history, which it doesn't surprise me just because when you put him in the slot, you see short area quickness. It tests well. I mean, it was like with Anthony Gonzalez was fantastic at those drills as well, and he was a great slot receiver. Anyone else surprise you or catch your eye to that over the weekend?
Well, I thought Luke Whippler had a good combine and really showed up. And like you said, DeJuan Jones was big and 5.36, I think, in the 40, which is for a guy that big, he showed he could move, and his measurements were off the chart. I mean he might be offensive tackle too after Paris Johnson being OT1. So I mean, as you said, the Buckeyes really represented, really did a really great job. I mean, as good as I thought Jackson Smith and Jigba was going to do, uh, I mean, he surpassed that. I mean, he solidified himself, in my opinion, to be a top 10 pick. When you consider that last year's draft was 8, 9, 10 with Buckeye wide receivers, there's no reason to believe that Jackson Smith is gonna slip anywhere below that. I think it'd be top 10. I think if he's there at 15, the Packers take him. But no, great combine for Buckeyes, and the OSU Pro Day is going to be something else to see, because a lot of guys saved their 40 times to run it at Ohio State, and we were discussing the merits of the OSU quote unquote fast track before the show. So I think it's more about comfort and just being in a familiar environment that they want to run that 40, give themselves as much chance to put up a good number. It's not like they're putting rocket shoes on them or something like that at the Ohio State track for them to go fast. But no, the OSU Pro Day is going to be something else, and can't wait for that as well.
Yeah, I think that the notion of the fast track is something that came from long ago. The team runs on the same field turf that we have in the horseshoe now. So there's no more. There used to be a patch of AstroTurf that would be down at the far end of the end zone that we always would run on before. It's fast, but it's not that fast. I mean, people acted like, we were running downhill or something, but I ran on that turf. I ran fast, but, you still have to be fast to run fast. It's not like if you magically walk on this magic AstroTurf that you're going to go from a 4.4 to a 4.2 or something. But now, like, there's literally the track that they run on at Ohio State is no different than what they run on at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's the same turf, literally the exact same turf we have in the stadium. It's literally right in the middle of our practice field. They partition off the 40-yard, with cones or whatever. So, they start at the goal line, they run to the 40. It's simple. So there's no more fast track at Ohio State. That's a dead thing that it existed a long time ago, but they haven't run on that in at least 15 years probably since they started running on the AstroTurf. The field turf. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think with Jackson, if he runs a 4.6, he's still going to be a top 15 pick. I just don't think that, I think after running those shuttle times, he's basically a lock for under 4.5. I mean, you can't run a shuttle that fast and not be explosive and ready to go in probably the mid 4.4s. CJ, it doesn't matter what he runs. Paris probably run, I'd imagine, a 5 flat, 5.1. It doesn't, he looked really fluid in the drills. Again, 40s are overrated for the offensive line. Orlando Brown Jr. had the worst combine in the history of the NFL, and he's going to sign for probably about $25 million a year. He's probably going to be the number one tackle in free agency if the Chiefs don't franchise him. So, again, that's a good comp for DeWand. There's a few supersized tackles in the league that have really helped DeWand's value. Guys like Orlando Brown, guys like Trent Brown, who's the left tackle for the Patriots. He's a guy who's 6'8", 370. It proves that these bigger, hulking guys that are generally more athletic than the guys of the past and can stay in front of guys, and they're basically like giant walls that pass rushers can't really get around. Those guys have really helped guys like DeWand out, because DeWand would have been a bit more of a novelty. I'd say even back when I played, there weren't guys that were that big, that were that athletic, but there's been a couple guys that have come into the league that have done really well and have gotten paid a lot of money in Trent Brown and Orlando Brown Jr. that have really helped DeWand's stock out. And I thought DeWand did fantastic. I mean, running a 5.3 when you weigh 375 is amazing. I think he's got a great personality. He's a good kid, and he has just tremendous upside. We're actually going to turn on his high school tape here in a second and watch kind of how far he's come from when he was a raw kid playing bad. He wasn't bad, but he was playing bad competition in Indiana, killing kids. He was at Ben Davis, which is a powerhouse, in a state that has generally bad football. So he basically just kills a bunch of little farmer kids, the entire tape. So we're going to watch some of that. But, I'm really excited. So it looks like, Cam Brown did not do drills. I don't believe. I didn't see him. I swear I saw pretty much everybody. Yeah, but Cam Brown, we have a guy in here named Cookie Monster. I love the name. He did not do drills. So, but Nevada, were you surprised by CJ? I mean, CJ looked great. Do you think CJ ends up being the first quarterback off the board, or you still think it's Bryce Young?
Boy, that's a great question. If I had to bet, I'd probably say it's going to be CJ based off that performance. I mean, there are a lot of people leaving that were saying that was one of the best throwing performances they'd ever seen from a quarterback at the combine. So, I mean, he really turned some heads. I know he turned my head with his comment about how I want to get the comment exactly right, but maybe you can find it or whatever it was. But it was something to the effect of, I wish I'd run more, or I regret not running more in college, or something like that. Because when I heard that, I nearly had a heart. Old Nevada almost had a heart attack and died on the site right there, because I'm like, what do you mean, CJ? You should have run? Really? Who knew? But no, I think, he made himself some money, and good for him. I think, for all these kids, it's kind of like with Jackson. When Jackson decided to hang it up and not play for Ohio State coming down the stretch, was I saddened? Yes. Was I disappointed? Absolutely. But will I keep rooting for him at the next level? For sure, I will. I root for all these kids as they go on to the NFL, unless they disgraced Ohio State in some way. And I was really happy that Jackson made himself some money. I mean, great player. It's kind of sad that pretty much the last time we saw him, other than a few snaps, was that great game against Utah that will probably never be broken, that record. And it was special to see him out there, and it makes you sad to think about what could have been for this year, because you add a pair like that to our offense, and nobody's touching us this year, absolutely nobody. But oh well, so what? Got to move on to the next year and on to 2023.
Yeah, I mean, this was the ultimate what if year. I mean, Trey Henderson hurt, just kind of a minuscule role for a lot of the year. Jackson Smith and Jigba basically misses the entire season. If those two guys are anywhere near where they were at the end of last year or the previous year, oh my God. I mean, it's the best offense in the history of college football, other than maybe the 19 LSU team. But it's just kind of is what it is at this point. But yeah, I love that comment by CJ where he's like, I wish I would have run more. Because again, me and you were the two guys that probably crowed more than anything about CJ needs to go and make it harder for defenses to defend us and go run a little bit. That doesn't mean go run in the A gap and go take on a defensive tackle or some monster linebacker. It just means go take free yardage when they're off in coverage and there's a bunch of green grass in front of you. Go take it, go slide, make it 2nd and 2, break their back a little bit. And again, I guarantee you, NFL teams, GMs that were in attendance, and when he had those 15-minute meetings, that speed dating they kind of do during the 2 days leading up to the actual workout, they all ask, why didn't you run? How do you have 0 rushing touchdowns in modern college football where everybody else runs and you're the only guy that didn't? Why didn't you run? Are you above running? Do you not want to get your nails dirty? It's one of those things where you look at like what Justin Fields did for the Bears. He literally broke the rushing record for quarterbacks. You look at what Mahomes did running in the Super Bowl. It's just so hard to defend. Even if you're the greatest thrower of all time, if you can scramble, it makes your life a lot easier because you're going to be converting. You're going to stay ahead of schedule. You're going to be 2nd and 2, 3rd and 2, and that is light years easier than 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 7. So you get those short distance things where you can literally call anything in the playbook, including running the ball twice on 3rd down to try to get 2 yards. It's just a whole different ball of wax. Nevada, do you think any of the quarterbacks, do you think anything from this weekend, because I'm sure you watched Will Levis, I'm sure you watched AR-15, the kid from Florida. Do you think anything got scrambled up by Bryce Young not working out, CJ Stroud having an amazing throwing afternoon? Do you think anything got jumbled up there?
Well, I just think the thing I got jumbled up, Bryce Young's really small. I mean, really small.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 5'10" or something like that. I mean, he's smaller than Baker Mayfield. And, I wrote this on the board. I said, I guess you can be small and be a QB in the NFL, and you can be slow and be a quarterback in the NFL, but you can't be small and slow. And that disqualifies Baker from being a quarterback, but I digress. Bryce at least has got his quickness, but I worry about guys that small just getting broken in half. And I think some of the NFL teams were concerned about that as well. So, I mean, AR-15 was athletic as heck. That was not a surprise to me, having seen him out there during the college game. And he's an athlete, and I think in today's college or NFL, teams are looking more and more for athletic quarterbacks. He might have moved up a little bit. And Will Levi, that guy has a big arm. I mean, he had a cannon for an arm, was showing it off. So it's gonna be interesting. I think it's gonna come down to individual team preferences and just kind of what they're looking for out of the quarterback position. But I guarantee you, the first time CJ Stroud, what's going to happen when he gets to the pros. CJ Stroud is going to become run Stroud, and he's going to run all the time. And every time he runs, I'm going to be screaming at the television, "Why didn't you do that for the Buckeyes?" And that's going to happen. It's gonna drive my blood pressure up because he'll run all day. He'll break Justin Fields' rushing record the first year or something like that, and discover his legs. So when he's doing that, we'll have some sort of CJ Stroud drinking game that whenever he takes off and runs, that you got to take a shot, and we'll see how drunk we get during the NFL games.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's going to be just kind of a stark awakening for him is like when you get to the league, man, he's going to be playing for the Texans, the Colts, the Falcons, the Raiders, one of these teams that just have absolutely decrepit offensive lines. And you're not going to have Paris and Dewan blocking guys from Indiana and, Purdue and, Antarctica and some of these teams we play on the schedule where you have a lot of time because you have two of the best tackles in the country, really good interior, the best skill guys in the country that get open, Marvin and Jackson and those guys. So it's different. I mean, he's got to get to the league. I mean, like, look at Justin Fields. Like, he's throwing to, like, Chase Claypool and Anthony Miller. Like, these guys that are just complete bums. David Montgomery's hurt the whole year. Terrible offensive line. They had an undrafted free agent left tackle on the O-line. It's like, so, you're not going to have, like, this infrastructure that you had at Ohio State with Ryan Day calling the plays and first, top 10 wide receivers at your disposal. His receivers at Ohio State last year are probably going to be better than the receivers he has in the NFL. Like, he'll probably get to the Colts or the Texans and he'll be like, man, I sure wish I had Marvin and Emeka. These guys get wide open, and not to mention they're playing against, corners that just can't cover them. So it's going to be different. Again, it depends on where he goes. But, if he goes 1 overall and Houston trades up and gets him, it's like, who's Houston's number 1 wide receiver? I don't know. It's somebody that you'd want to start on your fantasy team, let alone, have as your A1A guy. So it'll be interesting to see how much he does run. We talked a little bit. We're going to kind of transition into the end of winter workouts, where these guys really get kind of broken down and destroyed by Mick. It's really, really fun to watch. It's not fun to go through. And we're going to throw on some Dewan film and kind of in the background. So there's Dewan at right tackle as a high schooler. We're putting this on because Dewan is one of those guys who's changed his body as much as anybody in the history of the program. Because here he's a big, heavy, obviously he was a great athlete, great basketball player, but, he had to become a football player. And, he had to lose weight and shape up and gain some muscle. And here he is, just, bullying a bunch of, little tiny Indiana kids. But Nevada, you had some winners and losers. You got some great insight on the big time Friday workout they had. It was kind of the last ball buster of the cycle as they start spring practice this Tuesday in 2 days. What was your insight? Who are some of the guys that really stood out during winter conditioning?
Well, it's near the end of the winter conditioning program. They do their max day, and seeing some of those guys going out there and deadlifting 500 pounds and the like was really kind of interesting, kind of humbling to see guys with 6 plates on each side just kind of tossing that stuff up. But no, I thought one of the names that jumped out at me, a guy that really had a really good winter workout, was Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord really has kind of established himself as kind of a leader. Certainly, that's what you want to see out of your quarterback. Even in a quarterback derby, you want to see who's kind of grabbing the reins. And I think Kyle had a really good, winter. I think he's dropped a little bit of weight. He's increased his speed, increased his strength. And I think that's something that we're really going to keep an eye on. Another guy who looked really good through winter workouts was Trey Henderson. Trey Henderson seems to be bouncing back, really quickly from that foot surgery, from that plantar that he had last year and the torn ligaments that he had in his foot. He looks a lot better. He's not going to participate in the spring, but he's running well, moving well, looking to have a big year. A lot of strength. That guy's always been strong as heck, but he's even getting stronger. And I think on the defense, you're looking at guys like Tommy Eichenberg, who are really was a leader on the club. Last year I talked about how quick he'd gotten, and I said, you're not going to believe this, but I think he was a sub 4.6 guy. Well, I think he's even faster this year. So he's a guy that's even taking it up another notch. So yeah, the Buckeyes had a good, productive winter, avoided a lot of the injury bug. I'm not going to sit here and talk about how this was the toughest winter of all time. And everybody say, that's always what they say. But no, it was a good, productive winter. What you're looking for is avoid any of those big injuries, avoid any the nagging stuff that keeps guys out of the spring. Everybody that's supposed to be going in the spring is going to be going, and I think it was very productive. So, all ready to go this week for spring football, and the Buckeyes are in good shape.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting when they do some of these like kind of max out. They've called it the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in the past. They've called it the Harley Davidson workout. They do a lot of stuff that you can rep guys out without risking injury. So they do things like leg press where they do it to failure and they put, whatever, 600-700 pounds on and they got to get 10 reps or 8 reps, and they just got to keep going. But there's no real risk for like a severe injury, like if it's a back squat or a bench press. They do those hex bar deadlifts, which are a lot safer than a traditional deadlift, and they kind of try to rep that out. Again, they want to break these guys off, but they also don't want to, pull a pec or do something stupid, because if you do like a free weight lift, like a bench press, and you try to push for one more rep, and then your pec blows, like Ryan Day is going to be supremely angry at the strength staff. So. But it's a killer workout. These guys are usually dead. A lot of times when they do the wall squat, or excuse me, not the they do the loaded up leg press to failure, then they got to go do a wall squat, and we put like sandbags on their thighs. We keep loading up sandbags so they're about to die. But it was kind of diabolical. It was always fun to see. If you could break kids or, what kids would kind of fight back. It's kind of that fight or flight mentality that Urban used to always preach. So, we do a couple of those a year just to kind of test these guys. They're always kind of great to do on a Friday so that, the kids, because these kids are going to be smoked by the end of the workout. So you give them a nice 2-day recovery window. I'm sure they'll get a nice workout in on Monday, but the guys that are smart on Saturday were in the woody, getting in the cold tub, getting in the hot tub, plunging, taking care of themselves, because now's when you need your legs, because now spring ball's here and it's go time. So if there's ever time to eat right, get your ass hot and cold tub, like all that stuff, that's kind of, it's your life now, because now the practice starts, man. It's all about trying to recover and be as fresh as possible for that second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh practice. So it's really fun. But yeah, watching DeJuan here, Nevada, I love watching these films sometimes of these guys that are, they're projects. DeJuan was a 3-star guy. He was like the 80th rated tackle in the 2019 class. He actually had better offers than I thought. He visited USC. He had Florida. So it wasn't just Purdue and Indiana and that type of stuff. But, again, he was rated behind Ryan Jacoby, behind Enoch. Enoch is in his class. Enoch might not even start this year. Nice kid. But, DeJuan was, he was a kid that was a basketball player playing football. And, and part of what you have to do when you're evaluating these kids is you have to say, okay, so he's murdering this kid, pancaking this kid, but is it because he's just bigger than everybody? Is it because, he's playing against terrible competition in Indiana? Will this translate? Because there's just not a lot of guys that are this big that play college football. He's probably the biggest guy in Ohio State history, I'd imagine. But like, what do you pick up on? Like, this is where, a guy like Stud, who we kind of talk about all the time, you got to take chances on guys like this. You're not every guy is going to be Paris Johnson, who's polished and ready to rock from the first day that he gets to campus. There's a lot of guys like this where he's got a lot of, you got to get him in better shape. You got to get his technique honed up. You got to get him out of the basketball mentality and turn him into a football player. And not every 5-star works out, so not every project's going to work out either. But, what do you see that you like in this? I mean, because you just see this big moose just killing guys. And again, I'd love to watch a full game tape, but all we have is a highlight. But, what again, if you go back, this is a 5-star kid all day now, after, you've seen his 4-year career at Ohio State. But, what do you see in this film that you notice, and why do you think Stud took a chance on him?
Well, I think, first of all, if you really want to make a theme for this podcast, our theme for our podcast is to make the listeners smarter listeners, more intelligent listeners. And it's also to dispel false narratives, like we're talking about today about the fast track at Ohio State or the Stud can't recruit narrative. if somebody can't recruit, we'll tell you they can't recruit. If somebody's bad or lazy or dumb or fat or whatever, we're going to tell you. But in this case, DeJuan Jones is a perfect example. This was a kid that nobody else on the OSU staff wanted, but Stud wanted. He pounded on the table. Thayer Munford was another kid that Stud pounded on the table. Nobody wanted him, but Stud pounded on the table, got the kid into Ohio State, and kind of the rest is history. But I mean, with DeJuan, you're looking at the feet for me. When I'm looking at, finish and feet. I'm looking, does he finish guys off? Does he have the balance and the quick enough feet so he doesn't look heavy footed out there? And I think, like you said, from being a basketball player, he's obviously light on his feet, obviously can move. You like to watch these. Yeah, again, it's a highlight tape, so you can't really tell, is this one play out of 50 in a game, or is it every play where he's finishing guys off? And they obviously liked what they saw. They took a chance on him. And like you said, DeJuan turned into, a great college offensive line, not good, great offensive college lineman. And he'll be a high draft pick in the NFL, a guy that's going to be a multi-millionaire, play for a long time in the league. And, who knew, a little 3-star from Indiana, but like you said, you never know you never know with anybody. You certainly never know with offensive linemen, and you got to take your chances on a few prospects because some of them are going to turn out like this.
Yeah, and he was a kid that wasn't super mature. He's gotten more mature as the years have gone on. But he was a kid that there was a big rumor he was going to transfer to the Florida Gators during that 20, around the 20 bowl practice, getting ready for Bama. A lot of rumors that he was looking to leave because it didn't look like he had a path to the field the next year. And then obviously Thayer Munford gives up his left tackle spot. It converts into a guard. Which again, completely selfless. He's never played guard before. Nick Petit goes over to left tackle, and then it makes room for DeJuan to get on the field and play right tackle, and he played really well. And again, that was a good job of getting the best 5 guys on the field because we had to put Paris at right guard. So you kind of had this. You had 2 tackles playing guard, but those are NFL players. Like the other guys that were behind them aren't NFL players. They weren't NFL players. So you can't say, well, you can't play Paris, who's the best tackle we've had since Orlando Pace, because he's a tackle. You can't play him at guard. And I mean, again, the amount of stupidity that some of these idiots put out is, it's almost embarrassing that they consider themselves experts at Ohio State when they talk about stuff like that. But anyways, I'm going to digress on that before I go to town on some of these guys. We got a great question here. We got a super chat. Appreciate you, D. Sonny. Nevada, this is a great question. Were there any regrets for the coaches for not pushing Cardale to turn pro after 2014? Or was there real buzz for him to be a first rounder? I'll let you take that one first, Nevada, and I'll chime in.
Well, I mean, yeah, there was a lot of buzz on him being a high pick, and that was literally an Urban Meyer special where he was going to the league, and Urban Meyer personally sold him on, convinced him to return to Ohio State. And like I said, the next year, that's why he was the starter. He'd basically been assured he would be the starter. Eventually, it flipped back to JT, when we couldn't get it done, primarily in the red zone and the like. But no, there was definitely talk about that. And in fact, at one point, I think everybody was calling him to the NFL because he was telling everybody he was going to the NFL. So no, that was an Urban Meyer special. And that was an odd one because, his stock was never going to be higher than after that three-game stretch that he had, that magnificent, wonderful, lightning in a bottle, never seen anything like it before type of stretch. But hey, Cardale's got a good life now being Cardale, and he's always Cardale the legend. So I think things worked out the way that it should be. But yeah, that was one that was going back and forth all the way to the end.
Yeah, I was telling him to go. I was like, get out of here. I'm telling you, don't come back. Because you're never going to be at a higher crescendo. You've got more potential now. If you come back, JT's better than you are. Everybody knows JT's better than you are. He's already beaten you out twice. And sure as can be, he comes back, he starts a few games, and it's just funny because you're the hero, you won the national title, and then the fan base turned on him in the middle of the 15 season because our offense, that was probably the most talented offense we've ever had, was sputtering. And then people wanted JT. They're like, then it's funny, and JT hangs around after that, and then people hate JT. It's just kind of the cycle that we go through when guys stay longer than 3 years. But yeah, I thought Cardale made a huge mistake by coming back. It's a cute story, and he wanted to get his degree and be a financial planner. But for me, it's you can go get your degree when you're 40. You know, I mean, there's no, it's just how it is. Like if you can strike while the iron's hot, I said the same thing to Jonathan Hankins. Jonathan Hankins, he just finished up like year 10 or whatever in the league, and he had a bad knee. I knew he had a bad knee, and I told him in 12, I was like, get out of here, dude. Go pro, go get that money while it's hot before your knee explodes. And I mean, shoot, he's lasted 10 years. He signed a big deal with the Colts. I tell all these guys, if you're ready to go. Like, because there's no GoFundMe if Paris comes back or CJ comes back and they either stink or they get hurt or they have some sort of debilitating injury, which it's not super common, but anything can happen in football, like the Marcus Lattimore thing. Nobody passes the hat and makes up the earnings that you get from playing in the league. So, again, these guys, they've done their time. They've done great stuff for Ohio State. They'll be great representatives in the NFL, but you've got a short window to make a lot of money in the league, and you need to get out as quick as you can and get there with your body as fresh as possible. Dewan's a guy that, at the combine, he had to do extra medical rechecks. So I don't know what ticked, but I'm sure he had to do extra MRIs on something because he didn't make it to the podium for interviews because he was doing extra medical stuff. And I've been there. I had a bad knee, hurt it at the combine. I had to do like MRIs, X-rays. I had to come back for medical recheck, which happens in like another month. It stinks, and you don't want to risk any type of injury because the more injuries you have, it's kind of like you're kind of like a car. When you look at the Carfax and it says, oh, it's been totaled and it's had all these accidents, all these problems, and the value just degrades, and they treat these human beings and their bodies the same way as they treat a car. The more injuries and the more issues, the further you're going to slide down the draft. So these guys are all relatively healthy. Most of them, other than Jackson, haven't really had too many catastrophic injuries. Jackson just had a nagging injury, but it wasn't like an ACL or anything crazy. So I think these guys are, they're all relatively healthy and in good shape. But yeah, that's a great question on Cardell. Again, these guys, when their stock's high, man, it's like with CJ, as much as I think CJ needed another year, he had to go. He's not going to go any, he's a top 5 pick this year. If he comes back, he's probably the number 1 pick next year, but there's never any guarantees. If the O-line isn't as good as they need it to be, or Marvin Harrison gets hurt or whatever, there's no guarantees in life. So he did the right decision. But I think, if Peyton Manning can come back for 4 years, I think CJ Stroud can. Peyton Manning was the most advanced junior in the history of college football, would have been a surefire number 1 pick, and decided to come back for his senior year to get an extra year of seasoning. And if he can do it, I think anybody can do it. Here's the thing. I'm not bagging on Indiana. I apologize, Shane. My sister actually lives in Indiana, but I know McLaurin and Curry and people. I'm just talking about the overall level of football. It's not football that's played in Georgia, Texas, Florida. The depth just isn't there. Even in Ohio, it's a couple steps above Indiana, but it's not what it used to be 20 years ago, just because of the population shifting south. If you got to do tiers, it's like California, Georgia, Florida, Texas are at 1 tier. And then, you kind of have the second tier of like the Ohio's and the Pennsylvanias and those type of states. And then a couple tiers down, you have Indiana, just in terms of the depth and the total number of prospects. Indiana's kind of like a Wisconsin. Like, there's just not a ton of big time Division I talent in the state of Indiana. But there's probably more than some of the further north states. We had a bunch of really good questions. Keep these questions coming, guys. I appreciate it. This is a good one. Since we had the Josh Proctor thing, Nevada, your reaction to Josh Proctor. So CJ Stroud had a really interesting question asked to him. It was basically, who's your Ohio State dream team? And he said a lot of the regular guys: Marshawn Lattimore, Denzel Ward, the Bosa brothers, Chase Young, Cam Hayward, Ryan Shazier. He had like a kind of the who's who of who would be Ezekiel Elliott. But for safety, he picked Malcolm Jenkins and Josh Proctor. And again, you look at, if we did a poll of Nevada, your dream team, you're probably thinking Mike Doss, Jack Tatum, Malik Hooker, Jordan Fuller. We've had some really, really incredibly good safeties at Ohio State. And CJ went Josh Proctor, which was kind of surprising. What does that say about maybe what Josh Proctor's potential is this year? And the question is, who are the favorites to play safety this year, and where does Josh Proctor stand?
Well, first of all, I want to give props to CJ Stroud because he showed a lot of Ohio State knowledge on answering that question right there. Because it would have been really easy for him to get tripped up, but he knew some guys, man. So I was really impressed. CJ clearly was a fan. Clearly was a guy that was maybe not attuned to the history going back to the 70s and 80s, but the more recent history, he certainly knew who the big time Buckeyes were. But no, that definitely got my attention in regards to Josh Proctor. And a couple of things. First of all, Josh Proctor, who gets benched for all this time, then decides to come back to Ohio State for his fifth year or sixth year, whatever the heck it is, come back for one more run. Shocking. And it just says to me that they've got a role for him. They have to have a role for him. So I think you're talking about, Lathan Ransom, and you're talking about Josh Proctor, and you're talking about Jihad Carter in some sort of a role. And, you know, look, I'm not going to try to read too much into CJ Stroud saying that, but I've always thought that there was more to Josh Proctor than met the eye. I thought that Knowles' comments about him last year in the fall, which you've gone over many, many times about how excited he was about him, was telling. I've always liked Josh Proctor's ability to implement, hit, and make the big play. And now CJ Stroud rolls out with that, and Josh returns for another year. I think they've got something in store for him. And, I'm buying the Josh Proctor stock. I think Josh Proctor's going to have a big year. Could be a kind of a surprise breakout guy that we haven't really been talking about a lot. The guy comes from the back of the pack and goes on to have a big year. And we've seen it happen before, but I think it could happen with Josh this year. And I'm actually expecting it. So no, it was very interesting. But props to CJ for his knowledge of Ohio State football.
If you had to do your all-time team, who are your two safeties?
Man, well, I mean, I'd go. I'd probably go Tatum and Doss.
Good answers.
Yeah, it's like there's so many good safeties you could go back in time. Or for Fields one, Chick Harley. The answer is always Chick Harley for Fields one right there. So little shout out to him.
For me, like, I don't know, does Malcolm count as a safety even though he never played safety at Ohio State? Like, that's like, 'cause I always wonder.
He's a corner. He's a corner. Yeah. Malcolm's a corner.
If he's a corner, if I wanted to go a true free safety, I'd do Malik just based off his 1 year. And it's hard to go Tatum, but man, I really got to go Dante Whitner just because I played with him. He went top 10 in the draft. Just because of his speed. That's the difference between him and Doss, is that Dante could fly. Dante was a 4.3 guy. So it's like, Mike couldn't run like Dante could. Now, Mike was obviously more productive at Ohio State, played 4 years, All-American, obviously. Didn't reach that level. And he was a monster, Canton McKinley. I remember watching him in 97 win the national title as a public school in Ohio. That's like how good Ohio high school football was when Canton McKinley won the national championship in 1997. Mike Doss was a two-way guy, tailback, just monster. But I'd probably go Dante just because of the speed. Like, I love speed. And I played with Dante, and I thought that the biggest difference between our team in 05 and 06 was our safeties. Because, when we played Florida, they ran a lot of little screens and, horizontal runs and stuff. Like, Dante would have killed that stuff, and we didn't have guys that were like Dante in our back end. I'm not blaming our secondary, but Dante was one of the more underrated Buckeyes in school history, and he was a monster.
Now here's Nevada Bucks draft, but when Dante Whitner decided, announced that he was leaving early, Nevada Bucks like, what are you doing, Dante? Leaving early? What are you, a moron? You're not going to get drafted in the first, second round or something like that. You're a second day pick. So and then all of a sudden he gets picked like 8th in the draft or 5th or whatever the heck it was. It was some ridiculous thing, and then I'm like, that's the most ridiculous draft pick I've ever seen. And he goes on to be a stud in the NFL. So Nevada Buck does not know much about the NFL draft. That's for sure.
Well, Dante was a guy that, when I talked to Ted Sr., I remember talking to him at we had a banquet after, that Michigan, or after the Michigan game before we played Notre Dame. And I asked him, I was like, is Dante going to leave? And he's like, yeah. And Dante was my neighbor, so I knew he was leaving. He'd been talking about leaving since, before the season started. And I was just like, where do you think he's going to go? He's like, probably late first, and then, at pro day, he ran the most ridiculously fast shuttles in 40. Like again, he was like a mid 4.3 guy, um, just burning. And I mean, his shuttles were unbelievable. His position drills were unbelievable. And I didn't think in a million years he'd go top 10, but I thought probably top 20, top 30. So I remember when he went 8, I remember texting Gonzo, and it was just like, oh my god! Like I mean, because back then with the old CBA, that's like 30 million guaranteed. Like the old CBA was crazy back in the day. So that's Dante got paid, but I'd go those two. So I love seeing you guys. Yeah, you guys can put your two safeties in the chat. This is really good. I love this kind of stuff. Yeah, we are supposed to go on Zach's show. Bank and I are supposed to go on hopefully this week. Zach's been busy, so I'm gonna hit him up and see what day works for him. Appreciate that question. Let's see what other questions I have. You guys bring some awesome questions to the show, so it really makes it fun. All right, this is a go on Nevada because our boy the Oracle just is one of the most underrated talents in the sphere of college football inside information. Oracle is a guy that you can't reveal, but he really is at the top of college football. He gives us some great information on expansion. Nevada, when do you think the next ball in expansion will drop? The Oregon-Washington deal.
I think it's imminent. I think I mean, they're lobbying to play in 2024 in the Big Ten season. They've offered to come into the Big Ten and take not a full share, but take a pro, a reduced share just to be part of the conference going forward. And I think that's probably going to be enough. I think if the Big Ten had a commissioner right now, that this deal would be done. I think they're waiting for the Big Ten commissioner to get named. And once that gets named, I think the first item on the agenda is expansion. So I think this stuff is going to happen really quick. And I think in the meantime, I think the Big 12 is going to grab 4 schools from the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 is pretty much going to cease to be a conference. I mean, they're going to be, a few schools, and then maybe they offer Loyola Marymount or whatever it is, some of the Big West schools, membership. But I think the Pac-12 goes by the way of the white, thing. And I think the first domino is hire the commissioner for the Big Ten. And then immediately after that, I think expansion is going to happen. And I think it's going to be Washington, Oregon to the Big Ten.
Paul, what's up, brother? Paul is first in the chat, so appreciate you, my man. This is a great question. Is Sonny Styles the next Jack Tatum? I personally don't think body type they're similar. Jack Tatum is one of my heroes, one of the greatest Buckeyes who's ever lived. God rest his soul. He used to speak to us before every Michigan game. He would come into practice on Thursday, and he would say some very obscene things about Michigan and what we needed to do. And it was awesome because he did not, I mean, he hated those guys. And that's like something that sometimes I wonder about, like with the guys now in the team, because we're so national with recruiting. We don't have as many Ohio kids that kind of grow up hating Michigan. But like some of these old timers that were like, guys like Jack Tatum, they genuinely hated Michigan. I mean, it was like, they didn't pray with the guys after the game. They weren't homies. I mean, and I loved that. Like, I mean, I always, like when I listened to Jim Stillwagon and Tatum and some of these guys talk, like I was all ears because I was like, I loved being kind of his historian of Ohio State football. And, like I always loved listening to Jack Tatum talk the week before Michigan. He'd come in on Thursday after practice. Tressel would have him in. Tressel was the man because he really got the rivalry. He understood the tradition, and he brought in some of the baddest dudes on the planet to come talk to the team. Jack Tatum was one of those guys. And but the reason I'm not sure if Sonny Styles is him is because Sonny he's 6'4", probably 230, 225. I don't know how heavy he is now, but Jack Tatum was not that big. Now he could literally hit as hard as anybody in the history of the school. But they're just different body types. It's kind of like comparing Garrett Wilson to like Marvin Harrison Jr. Like Marvin Harrison's 6'4", Garrett's 6 foot, 6'1". Totally different games, totally different body types. Both fantastic receivers. Like I think Sonny has no ceiling basically as a player. But what are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, first of all, I mean, Jack Tatum was the singularly most terrifying player that ever has roamed either the college football or the NFL field. And the fact that you've discredited him by not having him on your all-time team. You know, it's kind of like when you did the same thing to Orlando Pace before. But yeah, with the I'm sorry, Jack. Jack, if you're listening to me up there in heaven, I'm sorry. I have you on my all-time team, but Barton doesn't. But
Oh
no,
God.
I think I've talked about this before, but I think Sonny Styles is you know I'd like to see him in that Baron Browning, that was Baron Browning circa Denver Broncos, not Baron Browning circa misplaced middle linebacker for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But put him at rush end, you know, put him at the jack, do something with him to get him rushing the quarterback, because he's long, he's lean, he's fast. I don't know if he's fast enough to be Cam Chancellor there in the backfield, but I think you've got to find a role for him. But I think I think the first role for him is rushing the quarterback, because he can get it. Some guys can just do it. It's like Shazier. Shazier, we didn't rush Shazier very much, you know, at Ohio State, but then he got to the pros, and all of a sudden he was this great rushing linebacker. And it was like, I never understood that. And I see the same thing with Sonny Styles. I think Sonny Styles is that prototypical guy that could create havoc off the edge, you know, rushing the quarterback, you know, dropping back, you know, in passing situations where he can create all sorts of different, you know, mismatch and confusion for the offense. But no, I think Sonny's the next Baron Browning. But yeah, Jack, I'm sorry that Barton left you off the all-time team. You're on my all-time team, though, Jack. You're my guy.
What else are you gonna say? Barton said DeJuan Jones should just erase Orlando Pace from the entire record book. Bigger,
Well,
better, faster,
you did
meaner.
Orlando. You did say Orlando. You did diss Orlando.
What did I say about Orlando Pace?
You said he wasn't the greatest offensive lineman in college football history.
I didn't say college football history. I said in football history. College football history is clearly the greatest.
Oh man! See, listen.
Well, hey, don't let me get Fields. I'll get Fields one in here because he'll say Jim Parker and he'll John Hicks.
He'll say Chick Harley.
He'll say Chick Harley. No, he'll say Jim Parker. He'll say Jim Parker was better than Orlando Pace was. You know, I mean, I always get an education.
Big Jim Parker. Big Jim Parker. My mom went to school. My mom was in school with Big Jim Parker. She said he used to walk her to class all the time. She said he was a real big man.
We used to have an award every week called the Jim Parker Offensive Lineman of the Week Award, and we would get angry if we weren't named Jim Parker Offensive Lineman of the Week, especially if we graded out higher than other players. And I mean, we were so competitive about that. I wish they'd bring that back, like the O Lineman of the Week. Now they just have like Offensive Player of the Week, Defensive Player of the Week, but we used to have it by position. We used to have Offensive Lineman of the Week, and man, we would get really angry because we were super competitive about that. Better pre-Michigan speeches, Jack Tatum or Earl Bruce? Well, Hurricane Bruce, we used to call him Hurricane Bruce, would come in on Sunday night. So after we would have film, we'd eat dinner, and then Hurricane Bruce would come up, and he would just go ballistic. And, you know, but the funny thing is that he said a lot of stuff that was really true. Talking about how, you know, if you lose this game, you can't take the main streets. You got to walk kind of in the back alleys. People really are going to hate you if you, and again, like, you know, it's hard to say that. No, because people really hate you when you lose this game. I mean, it wrecks their entire years, and that's real. You know, people get really upset when you lose to Michigan. We found that out the last 2 years, and after having the most epic run in the history of the rivalry, and now we got to go up to Ann Arbor this year, so it's going to be an interesting year. I'm going to kind of dovetail this. I think Jack Tatum probably was better just because I take more from players that played the game. Jack, I mean, he just said some stuff that I can't repeat, but it was really nasty, and I used to love that. Just because he was just a legit nasty dude, you know, playing with the Raiders and head hunting, and you know, he probably would have lasted about maybe a quarter in the modern NFL because he'd have been probably thrown in jail for the way some of the stuff he used to do. But I loved it. Like, I loved how he played for the Raiders. Man, they were a grimy, gritty team. You know, they're the dirtiest team in football, and I used to love that. I used to love hearing his stories, and so I'd probably go Jack over Coach Bruce. But Coach Bruce was awesome. Like, I used to love when he would come in. And we literally called him Hurricane Bruce because he would get fired up. This is the one we're going to end on because this is a good one. Does Ohio State get it together and beat Michigan this year? Nevada, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, they better, or we're going to be having a coaching search next year. So, yeah, Yeah. I'm picking the Buckeyes to win. But look, I only picked the Buckeyes to win because they win 97% of the games, and picking against them seems like a bad deal. But yeah, no, they'll get it done. They'll get it done. They'll. It's the last 2 years have been really unusual. Been just I don't know, just things have happened, but nah, the Buckeyes will get it done.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we this is a huge year for Ryan, man. We got to go up into the Lions Den that is, the big house, and I never took that for granted. I mean, I remember going up there in '05 when we were the better team on paper. They had a few losses, they'd had some injuries, and we just barely got it done, man. It was a war. I mean, and we were, it was like one of those classic Ohio State Michigan games where we were the clear favorite. We were the team that had a chance to go to the Fiesta Bowl. They went to I think the Alamo Bowl. They went to like a crappy bowl game, and they ended up losing to Nebraska that year. So it was just weird because, even though we were markedly better, we were more talented, it took a dramatic comeback from Troy Smith, Santonio Holmes. Gonzo had that crazy catch. Pittman ran it in. It took everything to win that game. And in '07, that was the game where it was like freezing rain the whole game. We ran it the entire game. So I never take anything for granted going to Ann Arbor. And this year, we're probably going to be underdogs going up there. So, these guys have a tremendous opportunity to right the ship, and they need to. I mean, again, we had all the momentum. We kind of had that fear factor for a long time. They kind of had that mental thing of they can't get over the hump against us. And these last 2 years where they've boat raced us, man, it's taken away all the momentum that we built up over 20 years. So it's a big year for Ryan Day, man. I'm telling you, this is a huge game. And I think we can get it done. I think we've got the skill guys. I think we're going to have a great running game. I think the defense will be more confident. So, and I don't think J.J. McCarthy's going to play like he did this past year. I mean, he played, we wanted him to throw the ball, and he did. He threw it right over our heads. And, and our guys just missed some tackles. Again, I felt like we had a great defensive plan in the first half. And then late in the game, man, we're a couple of tackles away from stopping them and playing well. So it just, it was unfortunate, but these guys got to get that edge back, man, because it is hard to win in Ann Arbor. And we've seen great teams, 95, 97. Some of these teams go up there and die in Ann Arbor. So, teams that, how could they ever lose with Eddie George and Orlando Pace? Well, they did. They figured out a way to. So, the guys better gas it up and get ready to roll. Let me see what else we got. Any other final questions?
I got a question for you, Mr. Barton. I got a question for you.
This is what I said. I said Paris would test better than Orlando. There you go. That is what I said. Thanks, Chris. I couldn't remember what I said. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question for you. And this is a legit question. You've always talked, not you, but we've always heard about these great halftime speeches for all your time in high school, college, the NFL, back at Ohio State as a coach. What was there singularly a greatest halftime speech or halftime moment that you can ever remember that turned a game or turned a thing around that sticks in your head or anything that you could that share? Because I've always wondered that.
Not really halftime. I mean, pregame, yeah, there's been some great speeches in pregame, but halftime, it's all about getting adjustments, getting things fixed. It's such a condensed period. I mean, obviously the bands play or whatever, but it's a little bit longer in college than the NFL. But you get in there and the coaches, if you're at Ohio State and you are one of the coaches in the box, like I was, you have to literally go down the elevators, run around the stadium, run into the locker room. Then you go into there's a coach's locker room where, where the top 10 coaches get dressed. So the offense usually goes in there and you've got your little, this is what we're getting. This is what we got to fix. You're on the grease board, drawing stuff up, with the head coach coordinator, everyone's together. And then the defense is in a different room doing the same thing. And then, after, that's maybe 5-10 minutes, you go to the players and, you've got the O-line, and going through adjustments. The skill guys are going through adjustments. You bring up the whole offense, little quick rah-rah speech, and that's it. And then if you're the guys in the booth, man, you're running back to the press box. And then there's the older guys ride a golf cart. like Jim Bowman or Tom Herman, who had a bad knee. But so there isn't like, I mean, if there was one as a player, I don't remember it. Because again, it's just, it's so kind of frantic and it's so, hey, we got to get stuff fixed. Unless you're just playing like trash, I mean, it's there's not really a need for a big rah-rah speech. I think that more of the heated speeches were like if we're playing like some Akron or some terrible team. Like we were playing Akron my senior year and it was like 3-2 at halftime. So obviously,
that's what I was wondering. Like, what was halftime like that game when you were ahead of mighty Akron by a point? Was that just like you were just calm?
Well,
nobody yelled. Nobody yelled. Nobody threw anything. Man, your stories suck, Barton.
You say some pretty nasty stuff because it's not acceptable to be up 3-2 against Akron. But at the same token, so you blow your stack a little bit, but then you still have to go out and win the game. Even if you stink, you still got to go win by 1 point. So there's got to be like a fine line between going like Full Metal Jacket and also getting done what needs to be done. So because you still have to like go play the game. Like when you're a player, it's like you could go, especially like I would, I'd get after the offensive lineman, especially because I can't go scream at the defense or I can't, that wasn't my job. I had James and Malcolm over there. They can take care of the defense. Like I'm not going to scream at the defensive players. Like that's not my job. My job is to get the offense to play better. So, it's kind of, but I mean, you can't scream at the defense when it's 3-2 and they're holding Akron to 2 points and we've only got 3. So again, it really, I can't remember if there being like a big time halftime speech and maybe I just, don't have much of a thing. It was more just kind of a, get things fixed. Let's go out and finish the game, whatever. But I wish I could lie to you and say that, Jim Tressel or Urban like dumped they threw a trash can and, knocked someone out or blood coming down the nose or some of the movie stuff from like Any Given Sunday or the program. But it's just, I don't think it's really like that. I think it's just like, hey, get stuff fixed and, let's go win the game and get out of here with a win. So
no, I remember we were playing for the state championship and our coach was calling a play and it was going to be, they were going to run Jimmy Chitwith off the picket fence. And he said, no, I'll make it, coach. And he gave him the ball and he scored. And that was my great story of the halftime thing. But that's kind of not the same thing as yours.
I mean, my high school coach was off the chain at halftime. So that was a totally different animal because, like, he would throw stuff and knock down a giant thing of Powerade. We had all white jerseys on. We're playing Columbus Eastmore. And he kicks the Powerade and it goes all over everybody. We have red, like half of us were drenched in red Powerade. Like that's probably what you're looking for. Because my high school coach was off the chain. He's crazy, and I loved it. But man, when he was on one, he was on one, and it wasn't. You know, I played for Tress. Tress had the tie on, the sweater vest, and the little transition glasses and stuff. So I mean, he wasn't crazy like Wake was. So.
I could see you with the white jersey with that Powerade spread. I think of the Kool-Aid Man or something like that. Like, hey, Kool-Aid or something like that.
The funny thing is that like a lot of the guys had to play JV, like the young guys. Like I wasn't playing JV. I was a senior at that time, but some of those guys that played JV the next day, they wear like the jerseys and they got the same punch on them, the same red punch all over them the next day as they got to warm up in the JV. So. I don't know. It's just one of those things where I wish that I had like a great story of Urban, like, throwing a chalkboard or Vrabel jackknife power bombing him through the table, like some site reported. I don't know. Like, Mike Vrabel hit a DDT on Urban after the Orange Bowl or whatever. But like, I never saw that happen. I mean, now did Vrabel probably not give an F and know that he was probably out the door? Sure. Because he probably already knew he was going to the NFL and he'd had enough. And plus he's a zillionaire, so he didn't really care. He was a little different than the guys that were trying to progress in their college coaching careers because Raves he's already a made man and he probably already knew he was going to the Texans, so he didn't care. But yeah. Let me see. This is a good one. Kirk, if you thought your teams were going to blow your chance to light up the cigar, you chew them. So that was the 06 Michigan game. Well, I didn't know, man. That 06 game, man, it was we couldn't stop them. And we were lucky enough that we scored 42 points, which at the time was the most in the history of the rivalry. But, until that clock hit all zeros, man, I was not excited. Now, when it hit all zeros, I was really excited. But, we couldn't stop them. That was the best offense we'd seen by far that year. And they were really talented, and they could really run that zone play that they ran like crazy behind Jake Long. But, yeah, I always kind of focused on making sure I played well and making sure my unit played well. Like my offensive line. That's all I cared about. I didn't care about, going over and yelling at the DBs or the linebackers because that wasn't my job. I trusted the guys that were the captains with me. I had Malcolm. I had James. We had guys like Cam Hayward, even though he was young. So again, you don't have to go be the police for everybody, especially if your unit needs the attention. Your unit better be crushing it before you go over and criticize another unit. This is how I always acted. So let me see. Well, I'm going to wrap this thing. Nevada, you got any closing words? We had some great film of DeJuan. Fantastic questions tonight. Thank you guys so much, as always. You guys really, we love interacting because you guys bring some great stuff, and it's always fun to get some of these awesome questions and talk to you guys. But any closing shots, Nevada?
Now, just if you're not a member of Buckeyes, if you're not a member of Buckeyes, it means you don't like money, because we're handing out free money on our betting thread. Because on our betting thread, we have been absolutely red hot on the MMA card last night. We were up almost 9 units, all posted. All that. I mean, it was a red hot smoking day. So people that know that are on the site know. If you're not on the site, it's and you just don't like money. But if you like money, come to be part of BuckeyeScoop.com, read the betting thread, make a few bets, make it easy. We had last night where I'm telling people, bet John Jones. I'm like, bet John. People are like arguing with me. Nevada, he hasn't fought in 3 years. Nevada, Cyril Gane looks like a French god. And I'm like, bet John Jones, bet the house, bet everything. I said, he's going to ragdoll. It will not be close. This will not be close. And what happened? It was not close. That was free last night, and there's another free pick that's going on for next week in the UFC Fight Night on March 11th. There's one that's a 5-unit hammer by us, but you got to be a member of BuckeyeScoop.com to find out what it is. That's my final word.
And we've got some awesome handicappers on our site, like Patty O'Harold. Some of these guys are killing it right now. So you, Dagasan Poppy, we got some really good handicappers on here. So, but yeah, again, and spring ball is starting up. So if you guys want the scoop, right now is the time for the scoop. And I am super excited about spring ball, and we're going to be crushing it for you guys. So going to wrap this show up. Thank you guys so much, as always. Again, we love doing the show. You guys are so fantastic. You guys that are part of the live audience. Thank you for your questions. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for clicking like, subscribe, hit that little alert bell so you get the alerts when we go live. Again, we appreciate you guys so much. We have so much fun with you guys, and you guys really make our community. If you guys are not a part of Buckeye Scoop, you got to join it, man. I mean, the betting thread alone, I mean, you're going to make your money back in one bet. So our betting, handicapping stuff has been crazy. It's been really fun. The best inside information, kind of the structure of everything that's going on inside the Woody Hayes. We're going to be all over that stuff. So again, we appreciate you guys so much. If you enjoy this show, I'm telling you, the scoop is this 24 hours a day. So we're on there. Bill Green's on there. We have some of the just the funnest times, the best chats. Off-topic stuff is great, but our inside information is absolutely killer. So we appreciate you guys so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Shout out where you're from in those comments. Let me know, who are you looking forward to hearing about during spring football? Some of these guys look fantastic. They've had great winter workouts. Some of these guys are just in ripper shape, and I'm excited to see them put the helmet pads on, or the helmet and the shoulder pads on, and get cranking. So as always, we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I will see you guys on BuckeyeScoop.com, the #1 Ohio State community, and it is so fun. So appreciate you guys. Go Bucks.